Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me. I'm Dr. Kellaprice from Healthy Fit, and I'm here with Ashley Beatty-Peretti, a mental health advocate. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited to chat with you because this is such an important topic. We at Healthy Fit believe in total body health and wellness, and mental health is one aspect of that I think a lot of people forget the importance or don't focus on it as much in their health journey. I
Yeah,
understand
I agree.
I understand that you personally have struggled with mental health illness in your life. What can you share with us about that?
So it's been pretty much my whole life. I was first diagnosed with depression when I was 14. And then shortly after that came anxiety and OCD. And then in my early 20s, I was diagnosed with attention deficit disorder, um, PTSD, and borderline personality disorder, as well as an eating disorder. It's been all over the place, and I was on some form of medication for several years. And then in October of 2016, I made the choice myself to stop my medications because I was tired of feeling blah and numb. Um, I don't recommend that. Don't do it unless it's something that you're comfortable doing. Talk to your doctor about it. But when I did it, I just felt so much better, and I haven't been medicated since, and it feels great. I've learned a lot of coping mechanisms and just ways to get my emotions out and feel them. I've learned how to feel them and really sit with them. So it's been a journey, and it's one that I will continue on for the rest of my life. But as I've gotten older, it's gotten a little easier.
You mentioned a combination of diagnoses, and I think that's fairly common when we're looking at mental health illness, is that they kind of are, there's a lot of things that are interrelated, and if we don't get appropriate assistance and coping skills, as you mentioned, that it can manifest itself in so many different ways. You mentioned the combination, including an eating disorder, and I know mental health in a lot of cases is paired with drug abuse and alcohol abuse as well. So I think that's an interesting piece of how we cope, and if someone is struggling with mental health and it goes untreated, we often cope in negative ways, and those are
Yeah.
some of those ways. I also noted that you mentioned ADHD, and I think some people forget that that's under the mental health umbrella.
hmm
Was
Yeah.
that one of your first diagnoses, or how did that um,
So,
identify that help you?
so that one came, I think I was 22 when I was diagnosed with ADD. Um, I wasn't really surprised because my dad has had ADD for his whole life. He still does, and it gets pretty bad sometimes. But I noticed that I wasn't really able to focus at work, and little things would distract me, and I was always fidgety, or sometimes I was just exhausted for no good reason. And I finally talked to my psychologist about it, and he did this test. I can't remember what it was called, but I basically just answered, it was like 10 questions. And he said, well, you definitely exceeded the threshold of ADD. And so he started me on Adderall. And I was amazed at how well it worked and how much more focused I was and how many small little tasks I was able to complete separately and not lose track of what I was doing. I had never been able to do that before. Um, and it was really nice to know that my brain wasn't just losing it. It was just something that I needed help discovering. And so it was really, really eye-opening and relieving to be diagnosed with that and know that there was actually something that could help.
These mental health illnesses can impact us a lot, not only in school, as well as work. And you pointed out that it was impacting your workplace. And I think it is really important to seek professional help and try to create coping strategies and know how you work best so that you can be successful at school or at a job without too much difficulty there. You mentioned that you recently got off medication, and I know that that's a discussion that people have to have with their doctor, but medication isn't always the answer, that coping skills and learning strategies to better deal with things that are happening in your life can be effective for so many people. My son has ADHD as well as some other serious mental health illnesses and underwent extensive treatment last fall. And one of the things that we discovered through this treatment and taking him off his medication, that it was not no, it was no longer effective, but he was able to really focus on learning those coping strategies and those skills that will carry him through life instead of just putting a medication band-aid on the situation. Because we know that most people, especially that suffer from anxiety and depression and bipolar disorder, when you feel good, you feel really good. And when you feel bad, you
Yeah.
feel really bad. And most people, when they feel really good, stop taking medication because they're like, oh, I don't need this anymore. And it causes a lot of challenges. So when we have those uh, coping skills and those strategies in place, we're not so reliant on the medication to normalize our behavior and get through life. How did you become a mental health advocate?
So honestly, I just started writing about different mental health illnesses and disorders and opening up about my mental health journey. And that kind of turned into me doing more doing more research, sharing resources, and reaching out and donating to mental health organizations like the Project Semicolon and what was the name of this one? The Right Love on Her Arms, and then the National Eating Disorder Association. I have reached out to a few other ones as well, and it's just been really cool because I don't like I'm not kind of tied to one specific thing. Whereas like if I can't think of a very good example right now, of course, but as being a mental health advocate is so much more than just like talking about mental health. It's researching and learning more for yourself, and it's sharing resources for other people whether they have mental illnesses or not, because I think it's important for everyone to know more about mental health. And it's just helped me be really open and honest and raw and sad sometimes, and that's okay, because that's what mental health is. It is a very real issue, and it is not talked about enough. And I feel like even if it helps one person, I'm so happy that I decided to start this journey.
Certainly, it impacts so many of us. Mental health disorders are among one of the most common types of disability, and oftentimes people get diagnosed with other things that are related to mental health. But 43.6 million people in America have mental illness problems any given year, which I think is a huge number. Why do you think
Yeah.
it's taken people so long to start talking about it?
Because it's scary, it's uncomfortable, and for those that don't struggle with it or have never really known anybody that struggles with it, they think, oh, it doesn't affect me. But it does. The fact that so many people suffer from mental health illnesses or any kind of disorder or disease that comes with mental health illnesses, the number is so big, so it affects so many people. And if more people knew about it and were open to talk about it, I feel like the stigma would not exist and more people would understand and be able to help those who do struggle. And that's kind of why I decided to become a mental health advocate, is because there needs to be more people that talk about it, and they need to be comfortable talking about it. I know that it's scary, I know that it's hard, and I know that it's emotional, obviously, but it's important. Just because it's scary doesn't mean it's not really, really important.
I totally agree. And it does take a brave person to make themselves vulnerable by putting themselves out there and sharing a different aspect of their life in an environment where we're all about social media and people sharing happy things and celebrating and all the amazing things they're doing. It can make it really challenging for someone who's struggling at any given point to put themselves in a vulnerable state and say, something's going on, I'm not okay. And it's not anything necessarily that's wrong with them. It's just like a diagnosis of cancer or something else that impacts your health, lupus or an autoimmune disorder. People are willing to talk about those things.
Yeah.
But they tend to be more private about the mental health journey. And I personally have suffered from anxiety and depression. I wasn't diagnosed until I was an adult. I don't necessarily know that it just manifested itself when I was an adult, or I became more aware of what was going on with me. But I've definitely been more vocal in recent years about my own struggle, because I think that talking about not only all the fun and amazing things that you're doing, like podcasts with you, which I'm sure I'll post on social media, but if I'm having a bad day or I'm struggling for a couple of days with my mental health, or I need to take some time off, I talk about it because I think it helps other people identify a similar situation in their life that, oh, maybe this is a problem. Maybe this is something that I need to see a counselor or provide myself with some self-care or learn some strategies to improve this situation. As a writer, what do you think or hope that other people will get from your writing in regards to awareness about mental health?
So first of all, I just really want others who struggle with mental health to know that they're not alone. There are, like you said, there's millions of people out there who suffer from mental health illnesses, and yet a lot of us still feel like we're alone in this fight, and we are not. And I think that was another part that pushed me to start opening up about my own experiences, because I personally know many people that struggle with mental health, and I don't want them to feel like they're alone, because I've felt that way. And it is the most disheartening and heartbreaking feeling in the world. It makes you feel hopeless. It makes you feel empty. It makes you feel alone, but you're not. And so I think that is really important. So if I can help one person and let them know that they're not alone and that they're worthy, I feel like I did a pretty good job.
Absolutely. It's like that story of the starfish, and saving the one starfish makes a difference to that starfish. I think we can start with one project or one approach to reach people, and you help one person, and then that person goes and helps another person, and the impact can be so amazing. I personally, when I met you online, I was super excited to do this podcast with you, because I think we have a lot in common in terms of goals for advocating for mental health. I am a mental health first aid instructor. And mental health first aid is a skills-based training course that teaches participants about mental health and substance abuse issues that usually go hand in hand. Just like CPR helps people assist others when they need that lifeline, like having a heart attack, mental health first aid helps you assist someone who is having a mental health crisis. And in this course, you learn risk factors and you learn warning signs, and you learn about different types of mental health as well as addiction concerns, and where to point people to the right resources for help. As a mental health first aid advocate, why would you recommend someone to take this class, even if they don't know someone with a mental health illness?
Just because they don't know anybody yet doesn't mean they'll never meet anybody with a mental health illness. I personally have a sister and my husband both struggled in the past with addiction. They are both in recovery for many years now and they're doing great. But me having experienced that, it gave me a newfound love and respect and concern for others who struggle with addiction, because they're so misunderstood. Like, addiction is a mental health illness. It's not their choice. It's not like they want to turn into that person. And so I feel like that kind of training can help so much, especially with people who suffer from addiction, because right now they're just seen as criminals or as low lights, and that's not true at all. They matter just as much as everybody else. And I feel like that is very accurate in what is going on in the world right now. But it's important to know how to help people, even if it's something that you don't understand yourself. And that training can help you understand and help you know how to manage that kind of situation.
Absolutely. As someone with a background in HR, I think that when you're working with people in a employment situation or workplace, it can be definitely helpful because you're interacting with different types of people from all different backgrounds, and it gives you an opportunity, if there is an issue, that you can help provide a resource to that individual. But you never know, just like you said, when you're going to encounter someone. It could be someone in the workplace. It could be someone that you encounter at church. It could be someone from your own family that is struggling, and being aware of the warning signs and some of the different ways that mental health can manifest itself can allow you to identify that there might be a problem and reach out to that person and let them know that you care, and get them the resources before it actually becomes a crisis. Because the last thing you want to do is have someone hurt themselves or become in a tragic situation because they didn't see another way. And it's unfortunate with the COVID and isolation, that some of the resources or some of the things that people might normally have as support are no longer there. And so I think it's more challenging for people who are struggling with mental health to get some of the resources and tools that they might normally have access to.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, my son suffered from some severe mental health illness, which was untreated for a really long period of time, because quite honestly, as a young boy, he didn't know how to communicate some of the struggles that he was having with us. How can you encourage, as a mental health advocate, open dialogue with children? And what are some of the warning signs that a parent might want to look for if their child is in crisis?
So as a mom, I have two boys, 7 and 2. And my 7-year-old actually asked me a question the other day. He was with his grandparents and they were driving over a bridge in Portland, Oregon. And they had said there were a bunch of police officers around, parked on the side of the street out of their cars. And his grandpa, my son's grandpa, said, "Oh my gosh, did that person jump off the bridge?" And so my son, a few days later, asked me why he said that. And I tried to explain the best I could for a 7-year-old that sometimes people have weird things happening in their brain that makes them feel really, really sad all the time, no matter what they do, no matter how good their life is. They're just really, really sad. And it broke my heart because he started to tear up, and I could tell that he didn't quite understand the depth of it, but he understood kind of what I was saying. And I told him how there are people who get to a point where they feel so sad, like nothing will ever get better, that they take their own life. And he said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "So Grandpa said that somebody jumped off the bridge, right?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, why do you think he did that?" And he was like, "Because he's having fun." Bless his heart. um, I said, "I mean, that's possible, but it was a pretty high bridge. So when you jump from that high of a distance, it's not because you're wanting to have fun." And it was really hard to explain mental health to a 7-year-old in a way that he could somewhat understand. So instead, I kind of shifted the narrative, and I told him about how I reminded him of the times that I've been really sad or really tired and didn't want to get out of bed and wasn't in the mood to play with him. And he says, "Yeah, you used to be like that a lot." And I said, "That's because I was feeling sad all the time, and that is called depression." And I kind of tried to explain to him those kinds of things. And it's just really important for parents to be open and try to discuss these kinds of things early on, because I don't feel like there's a too soon age to talk about it. And I feel like that's part of the problem, is a lot of people don't talk about it until their children are in high school, when a lot of mental health illnesses start to come about in teens and adolescents, because high school is a tough time. And that's when most of mine started coming about, was in high school, because I was bullied. And it needs to be talked about sooner. And I know that it's hard as a parent. I know that it feels impossible. And I know that you don't want to take your child's sunshine and rainbows view of the world away. But if they think that the world is all sunshine and rainbows, and then one day they wake up and they're like, "Why do I feel this way?" they're not going to understand. Whereas if they have been talked to about it throughout their life, they might wake up and say, "I think I'm struggling with something in my brain, or with my emotions, or with a mental health illness." Maybe they'll know what that is. And I think that's a really important reason to talk about it sooner and to be open about it.
So part of that I heard from you was talking to kids about their emotions, having the child, one, be able to identify the emotions that they're feeling, whether it's happiness, sadness, anger, being able to cope with identify, putting a name on those emotions of what they are and how to appropriately cope with those. Because I think any child from a very young age, you teach them about feelings. And we used to have a chart on our refrigerator with the different faces, what I'm feeling today: frustrated, angry, sad, worried, and it had different facial expressions. And my kids used to draw a little picture of how they were feeling as a way to build vocabulary. But being able to put a name on the feelings that you feel, and asking your kids if you notice that they're particularly ornery or they're acting out is a sign that there's some sort of issue, whether it's things that they're experiencing, bullying at school, or they're struggling with friendships, or maybe they're just struggling with their attention at school, so they're underperforming, and being able to help them through those problems. But as a parent, I think it's also hard to encourage that communication. Like now I have a house full of teenage boys, and most of their sentences are one-word sentences. How was your day? Fine. What do you want to do today? I don't know. Everything is very short and brief, and trying to get them to be more in tune with not just communicating with us about life in general, but being able to talk about things that they see in the news or things that are happening with their friends, and talking about things that we come across in our day-to-day life, whether it's a homeless person on the way to the store, or news. One of my sons, there was a boy from his school in middle school age. There's been several kids in the last couple months that have committed suicide, and having those conversations with the boys about, what do you do when you're sad? Who can you go to? Can you come and talk to us? If you don't want to talk to us, what are the other options? Because as a parent, I don't want my kids to have their friends as the first resource, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you agree with that, but because sometimes friends can lead people down the wrong path. So I've tried to allow my kids to have other resources of trusted adults through church and counselors and their older brother and other sounding boards of someone, that if they don't feel comfortable talking to me or my husband, that they have someone else that they can reach out to. And I think having those resources available is really important. But also teaching kids effective problem solving, because we all have problems, and we're going to encounter problems. And as a parent, I know sometimes it's really hard not to just fix the problem. And as your kids get older, you have to kind of cut that chain and let them do their own thing. But teaching them appropriate problem solving strategies, so when they do encounter difficulties, that they can cope with those and manage those disappointments or those tough times in their life in a more effective way.
Yeah.
Self-care is something, for me personally, I found has been super positive for my overall mental health. What are some of the ways that you help take care of yourself that would be good self-care tips for others?
So definitely taking a break from social media every once in a while, because that can be really damaging to one's mental health.
I've had to do that a lot lately because of all the negativity and the criticism and backlashes in the media. I've had to really limit that for sure.
Yeah, and it's been really hard. But I've also learned to recognize the fact that not everything you see on social media or online is a true representation of what's actually going on or what that person's life is really like. You just see snippets and snapshots of people's lives. So I think cutting out social media, not permanently and not all the time, but every once in a while, it can be good to kind of rejuvenate your mental health. Getting outside, get in the sun, even if it's for 5 minutes, go on a quick walk around the block, go stand on your front porch. I'm looking outside because it's actually sunny finally. And I also really enjoy writing, like journaling, to get all of my thoughts out instead of word vomiting all over the place. Taking a warm bath with a glass of wine. I think people find things that work for them, that sometimes it's unhealthy, and they can learn how to shift into a healthy self-care routine. But it can be something as simple as going to bed an hour earlier, making a schedule for yourself for the day so that you can get these things done and feel accomplished and feel productive, because that can really boost your confidence in yourself. Washing your face, have a good skincare routine. I don't know, taking a shower or a bath. There's so many simple, small things that you can do for self-care that people are like, oh, that's just like a regular thing, when actually it can improve your mental health status and your feelings about yourself and the world. And it doesn't have to be this big thing. You don't have to meditate for an hour or be a pro at yoga. It can just be something small. I don't do yoga. I don't do breathing exercises or meditate because focusing on my breathing makes me have really bad anxiety. And I learned that when I was actually at an inpatient facility several years ago. That was one of the exercises I could not do because it made it worse. So instead, I learned to just sit and be with my thoughts and allow them to come out. And I cried every time I did it because I'm feeling, and that's so important. Recognize what you're feeling and the thoughts that are there and let them out. Don't bottle them in. Talk, write, sing, whatever. Just get it out.
For sure. I love all of those suggestions. I know being outside is one of my favorite ways to instantly boost my mood. On a sunshiny day, I love to get out in the sun. I love to go for walks or take my dog or my kids outside and play. And I have actually a stream in my backyard with a pond and little fish. And I love to sit out by the pond and listen to the water gurgle with nothing else, like no music or anything, and just enjoy nature. It's so soothing and relaxing to me. So like you said, I definitely encourage people to try different things. I have a number of the adult coloring books that were all the rage before, and I love doing those. I'll rip out a page and put on a clipboard and go outside with my art and just color, and just focusing on absolutely nothing else is a really beneficial way for me to clear my mind and help improve my focus. And it might not work for everyone. So you try something, you try journaling. It might work for somebody. Somebody else might prefer to do something else. Like my son really likes to listen to music to relax him. So
music is only a lifesaver.
He has the music going like all the time. So tell me about your t-shirt project. Is the shirt you have on one of your shirts?
This one is not, but I actually have some right here. So this is the first batch that I made. Yeah. So I was kind of trying to think of ways that I could do more than just writing and sharing my story. And I was like, well, I've always kind of wanted to make t-shirts, design t-shirts or tank tops, sweatshirts, whatever. And I was like, well, I guess I could try it and see if it is successful. And I just did my first batch of ordering, and it was these shirts. I just did the one design because I wasn't gonna go all out before I knew kind of what the demand was gonna be. But I did that, and people have been really happy with their shirts so far. I love mine. This is not one of them. I have this one in red. And I just feel like it's such an important message. And now that I know that there's people out there that want the shirts, I'm going to start doing some more designs. And I have my next one ready. I just have not shared it yet. And I made one that's more appropriate for women and one that's more appropriate for men, because I know men aren't going to wear a shirt that is like a flower on it. So I made it. It's like, it's an adult shirt, definitely, but it's also humorous, but also bringing awareness to anxiety. My next shirt focuses on anxiety. So I'm really excited to show that to people and offer it to people, and I will eventually try to get an online store going with bonfire.com. That's who I use to make my shirts. And a portion of what I make will go to the Project Semicolon organization.
So if someone wanted the I Am Worthy, So Are You shirt, how do they get one of those?
So I'm still working on getting my store up and running on Bonfire, but basically I make a it's called a campaign, and I give people the website to go to, and they order their shirt directly from Bonfire, their size, the color, and the style of shirt they want, and then it will get shipped directly to them, and there's no like extra fees or anything. I just set the price, and they order it, and it goes directly to them. There's no middle person. It's just quick and easy, and then the money made from those will come to me, and then I'm probably going to do like once a month, I'm thinking about doing 30% of what I make and donating it to Project Semicolon.
Project Semicolon, can you tell us what they do for those of those who are watching that don't know about it?
Yeah. So it's a nonprofit organization that focuses on kind of giving hope to people that struggle with mental health illness, suicidal ideation, um, self-harm, and addiction. It's just to bring positivity and let them know that there is hope. I actually have a tattoo with a semicolon that represents my life before and after my almost suicide. And it's right here, actually. Try to get closer. So it says fighter, and then it's a heart rate,
Mm-hmm.
and then a semicolon, and it says fighter. And I got that after I was hospitalized for self-harm I believe I got it in 2015, and I was hospitalized in 2015. Yeah, so got it shortly after that. It is my most meaningful tattoo. It is my favorite tattoo, and I show it off as often as I can because I'm not ashamed of where I came from and the journey that I've gone through and continue on. So the Project Semicolon just really speaks to me on a personal level, and what they do is really great. Spreading hope and sharing hope and letting people that struggle know that it can get better. It does get better.
For sure. I love a hopeful message, and it certainly is a great organization. And I can't wait to see more of your shirt designs and how that can be a positive impact to people. Having positivity is so important for our
Yes.
own well-being, but also for that of those that we come in contact to. So having a great message is one way to do that. As a mom, I know my life with 4 boys is super challenging. How can moms not just stay afloat, but thrive when taking care of little humans?
I think that this is really important. And I don't have a great answer for it yet because I'm still learning. My oldest son is 7, so I haven't been a mom for a super long time, but I do have 2 children, and some of my mental health issues came after my first son was born because I was thrown into a really, really bad um, bout of postpartum depression after him. And that kind of led into my eating disorder and PTSD. And I struggled for a really long time, and I resented my son because I was young. I was 19 when I had him, and I resented him because I felt like my my pregnancy and all of the hormonal imbalances came from him, and it breaks my heart, and I'm going to try not to cry because I feel like I had such a more powerful bond with my second son because I didn't struggle with postpartum depression, and it makes me feel like a bad mom because I didn't realize as a 19-year-old new mom with postpartum depression that it wasn't his fault, and it wasn't my fault either. It wasn't anybody's fault. It was chemical imbalances that I couldn't do anything about it, but I blamed my son, and it really took away from bonding with him. And now his dad and I are not together, but we have a very good relationship. He's friends with my husband. My older son loves my husband. And I think as I've gotten older and focused on my mental health and really learned how to cope and learned to say, I need a break, I need to take care of myself, has helped me not forgive my son because he didn't do anything, but forgive myself for blaming him. And our relationship is a lot better now. And I've learned to just, so as a mom, ask for help. Vocalize when you need a break. Vocalize when you need to be alone or when you need to not be alone. It's important to talk about it. It's important to take care of yourself. You cannot take care of your tiny humans if you're not taking care of yourself first. I know people always say, my kids are more important than anything, but you have to be more important than anything. Obviously, you love your kids more than anything in the world. I love my boys. I'd do anything for them, but I can't do anything for them if I'm not doing it all for myself first.
It's like that airplane analogy that you have to put your own mask on before helping small children. It's the same thing with self-care for sure. And I know other people that have suffered from postpartum depression, and identifying that that's what it is the first step to being able to move past that and get assistance and get over that hump. And having babies is tough, especially if they're not sleeping or not eating correctly and they're crying and you're tired as a mom. And self-care is usually one of the first things out the window, right? Because we're not getting enough sleep. We're not eating properly in a lot of cases because we're tired. And so we're eating when we can. And sometimes when I had very small children, sometimes I would forget to eat because I would be busy in things, and then I'd hit this like wall and then I'm ornery and I'm not effective as a mom because I literally have no energy. So being able to help yourself can make you so much more effective. And now that my kids are older, I'm out of the baby stage and I have a house full of teenagers, and that's a whole nother challenge. Teenagers, like the worst roommates ever, I'll tell you what. But being able to communicate, what if I need a timeout for my kids, I say, okay, it's quiet time. And kids need timeouts too. They need time to themselves to like decompress so that they don't, close quarters, especially during quarantine when you're with the same people for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, going to separate rooms and having some downtime that you don't have to converse or talk to anyone else. And I'll set a timer. I'll say, we're going to do an hour of quiet time. And I shut my door and I go in my room and I might read my tablet. I might watch part of a show. I might take a nap, whatever I feel that I need at that time. And I feel so much better. And I feel like my kids can also articulate like when they need to be alone or they're getting irritated, instead of pushing and shoving because they're boys. The one might say to the other, you're irritating me, I need to go away, right? And separating themselves from the situation, being able to articulate those needs. And luckily I have a husband who is a great support partner. And if I have had a rough day and he comes home, we do the high five, and he can manage children. Or like yesterday, I was just tired and needed to get away from the boys and the craziness that is teenage boy life. And so I changed my clothes and my teenagers cooked their dinner, and my husband and I went out. We said, we'll see you later. We're going out for a couple hours, just so that we could have some adult couples time. But having a partner that supports you and is able, that you can communicate like, oh, I had a bad day, I just need to vent to you, or I need your help with this, can be a huge help. And I'm thankful that I have that. But there might be some moms out there that are single parents that don't have a partner, or maybe their partner's not as supportive, and so they have to have either friend network or family network, or even just a really good babysitter that they can take the kids to for an hour so that they can get some time to themselves, is just so important.
I'm glad you touched on that because my husband is amazing. I do not know what I would do without him, but my older son's dad, because we were so young, our relationship struggled a lot. And then after we separated, I had no idea how to be a single mom, and it was so hard. And I think to all the single moms out there, it is so important to know that just because you are a single mom does not mean you don't have support. You have friends and family. There are resources that can help you figure out how to get through this crazy life on your own with your kids. Um, it's just all about whether or not you're willing to ask for help, and it is so important to ask for help.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Ashley, for joining me today and sharing your story and your personal insights. For those of you who are watching again, Ashley has shirts that are going to be available with the proceeds benefiting Project Semicolon. If you are interested in taking the mental health first aid class, we have adult and youth classes available. The program is available online as well as face-to-face training, and it's a great tool whether you're a parent, a teacher, just a nice neighbor, someone who interacts with children or interacts with people in general, to be able to be that resource and have the tools in your toolkit, because you just never know when you have someone in your life that you come across that is struggling, and being able to give them that assistance and support is so important. Thank you so much for joining us today.